Hi, I'm attorney Kimberly Agoin, and of course, this is the Let Me Clear My Throat podcast. I'm so happy to be with you today because we know that it appears that we tend to be in a perpetual election cycle here in the state of Illinois, city of Chicago, and even around the entire country. And every time we're told this is the most important election of our lives, but too often, Black people, African Americans, are not feeling any change from the elected officials that we get in office. They go to office, we get very little in return until it's time for people to come back again to speak with us once again. And what I'm seeing right now, what I'm hearing right now in the street, right, is that there is not a very strong appetite to vote anymore from a lot of African American people because they're not seeing any return. We can't act like that's strange. That's actually very rational. If you feel like you keep participating in a system, you're not going to keep doing it when your streets are still messed up, when people are being killed left and right, when you aren't seeing any equity, when you're not seeing any resources come back to your neighborhood. I'm concerned that we are going to have this election on March 17th and that the turnout is going to be very low in our communities for that exact reason. And as I watch the debates and the forums, I am seeing African American anchors, journalists, get the opportunity to sit in front of the candidates and still not ask any questions about why African Americans should feel motivated to vote and what is going to change if we send these people to office, whatever race they are. What is going to change for our people who are suffering so much around this country because of we pay the tax dollars, but they don't come back to us. So I felt it was important to talk to at least the people who were running for the United States Senate seat, which is the junior senator from the state of Illinois. I reached out to all of the candidates, and that would be the main candidates for the Democratic nomination. That's Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, that's Congressman Rajna Krishnamurthy, and that's Congresswoman Robin Kelly. So we want to hear from them so that we can ask the questions that are important to our community to see if we can get rid of some of this stubborn poverty, some of this stubborn inequity, and actually be able to be proud of where we are and have the neighborhoods reflect everything that we have put into them. We fought a lot for this. We work every day. We pay taxes. We're doing the things that we are supposed to do. And yet many of our neighborhoods still look bombed out like what you see in Gaza or what you're seeing right now in Iran. And this is not all about what President Trump is doing. Yes, his administration is doing some dastardly deeds in some cases, but this has been a stubborn problem no matter who is in office. And it's at every level, from the local level all the way up to the federal level. So we're going to ask those questions that you have been asking me when I'm out talking with you. So I hope that you really listen to the candidates, and hopefully they all will take the invitation to come and speak with us, because it's going to be a fair and even platform for everyone to come and share why we should vote for them. So I hope you enjoy it. So as we approach March 17th, we know in the city of Chicago, state of Illinois, and in the entire country, so much is at stake with this next election, especially with the backdrop of many policy decisions, let's just say that, by the current federal administration, the current president, as well as Congress. There's a chance that Congress will change hands. But in the state of Illinois, city of Chicago, one of the things that is most important to our community is this idea that Illinois is experiencing a significant decline in the Black population. Now, we're talking about people that just over 100 years ago, maybe 105 years ago, made the Great Migration to places like Illinois in order to run away from discrimination and just dire situations, to this idea that in a 10-year span between 2012 and 2022, the Black population in the state dropped by almost 3.5%, or even there's been an exodus from the city of Chicago with a decline of nearly 25% between 2000 and 2019. Many of those people running from Chicago first to the Southland, but then from the Southland to places like Texas, to the South again, as an almost reverse migration. We have got with us today the current lieutenant governor of the state of Illinois, who also is running to be the next junior senator from the state of Illinois. So I want to ask you, Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, first of all, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I want to ask you, given the set of circumstances that I have laid out in front of you, the concerns of African Americans and Black people in the state of Illinois, what is your top priority should you be elected as the junior senator from the state of Illinois to the United States Senate?
Well, thank you again for having me. And let me just start by saying I'm very proud of the work that Governor Pritzker and I have been able to do in the state of Illinois over the last 7 years as governor and lieutenant governor. We know that we inherited a government from the previous governor that had seen so much instability, so much chaos, and we came in and we've passed 7 consecutive balanced budgets, really brought that fiscal stability and financial stability to our state. We've created thousands of jobs. We've raised wages and made record investments, not just in our infrastructure, but record investments into education, including some of our most under-resourced schools and communities. So I'm proud of that work, but look at what's happening in Washington right now. We have seen Donald Trump really ignite a 5-alarm fire. And when you have a president that strips away health care from millions of Americans, rips food out of the mouths of hungry children, ends funding, grant funding, and other funding to help create more equitable communities, and does so really just because a state like Illinois dares to stand up to him, then it's a real fight on our hands. And it's why right now, every single day when I'm traveling the state and talking to people about what they're looking for, more than anything else, what people say is they're looking for someone who will go to the mat fighting for them. And I'm proud I can look them right back in the eye and say, that's exactly the leader I will be.
And that's fair enough because we are very familiar with the administration beforehand when Governor Rauner was in office. Some of us fought to have the child care funding restored, during his administration, as far as early childhood education. And, there were cuts to that. There were cuts to human services, and we get that. But in many cases, I'm talking to Black people every day. I'm not feeling a great sense of urgency. I'm really concerned about the turnout because to many African Americans, they feel like they are surviving every administration that gets in office. So while there are things that have been done and there has been funding, and to your point, there are things that have been done as far as balanced budgets, et cetera, we're talking about Illinois having the highest unemployment rate for African Americans or Black people right now. We're talking about having the lowest wealth levels. For example, a Black family in Chicago has $0 compared to $210,000 for white families, which is showing this amazing wealth gap. We're talking about poverty rates. So the question that I would have is, should you become, let's just put it this way, when Black people are deciding that they're going to go to the polls on March 17th, what can they expect from you should they choose your name? What should motivate them besides what Donald Trump is doing? Keeping in mind that Black people feel like they have literally just been trying to survive every administration in the state of Illinois. How will they feel seen by you?
Yeah, well, the same way that I know that they felt seen, at least that's what I'm hearing from our communities every single day that I'm on the trail, that I've been there. I've represented the whole state. I'm the only candidate in this race that has represented the whole state. And when I show up in communities, people don't say, oh, this is the first time we've ever seen you. They know that they've seen me over and over again, that I've listened to them. Let me give you some examples of that.
Please do.
I'm very proud of, for example, what we've done to protect reproductive freedom in the state of Illinois. The governor and I are very proud that Illinois is an island for reproductive freedom. But I called the governor a couple of years ago and said, look, Black women are still dying at a rate that's 3 times that our white counterparts from pregnancy-related complications. And so while I'm proud of that, we need to do more. And because of my leadership now, doulas and midwives and lactation consultants are covered, whether you have Medicaid or private insurance. That's an example of why my lived experience as a Black woman, being at the table, being in the rooms where decisions are being made, has been critical. I think about what I want to do. My platform is called Give the People What They Want. What do I hear people saying from our communities and communities all across Illinois? They want higher wages. Right now, the federal minimum wage is $7.25. No one who is concerned about economic equity, no one who is concerned about closing the wealth gap would ever think that $7.25 an hour is something that a family can live on, and not even an individual. And I'm proud that we worked to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour in Illinois. But guess what? That's $31,200 a year. So I'm proposing to fight for a $25 an hour minimum wage, because we shouldn't keep talking about the bare minimum. If we really want to make some headway into closing the racial wealth gap and just closing the economic wealth gap, we need to help people make a livable wage so that they have some money in their pockets, can save for their future, take care of their families, and hopefully spend in some of our small businesses. I'm fighting for Medicare for all because we know that healthcare is one of the biggest issues around affordability, and Black communities are disproportionately impacted by medical debt, not having access to doctors and the healthcare that they need. Just this, week, the governor and I announced over $1 billion that we have erased in medical debt. And that has had a disproportionate impact on Black communities. That's an example of a real life solution to an economic issue that impacts our communities. So by erasing that medical debt, more people are going to be able to buy homes and start businesses and take care of their children. But at the federal level, what I want to do is I want to see Medicare for all. I believe in universal health care because no one should go without a doctor when they're sick. And too many Illinoisans are deciding, do I pay my bills or do I go to the doctor? And it is wrong. I want to see a tax break for middle class families. What have we done in Illinois? We eliminated the grocery tax. We've lowered the cost of prescription drugs. We've done so much to make life more affordable for, including raising wages for Illinoisans. But there's more that needs to be done. This is a president who said that he was going to lower inflation on day one. He hasn't done that. He hasn't lowered the cost of groceries like he said. So I'm a person who, just like every one of you who's listening in, who, when I go to the grocery store, you start making decisions. Do I get this or that? Because it's more expensive now. I have daughters myself who are wondering, will I ever be able to own a home in this economy? I have another daughter who said, look at my ACA premium from last year compared to this year. I'm going to have to get the lowest level for benefits. None of us want that for ourselves or our children. We need to have bold, courageous leadership that's going to fight to make a change. And I'll tell you this much, people aren't looking at Congress right now and saying, that's the kind of energy I want to see. People are fed up. They want new energy, new leadership, new ideas, and that's what I'm going to bring.
Well, and you say that you're traveling the state, these are the things that you're hearing. What I am also hearing is the idea of leadership just among Black elected officials. There, some years ago, the senator who filled in for Kamala Harris when she ascended to the vice presidency, LaFonza Butler. Am I saying?
Yes.
Yes, I'm saying that right. I had an opportunity to speak with her last September, and just discussed, as a woman who probably held the highest seat for an African American in the state of California, how much coordination went on from top to bottom, because even whatever you do at the top for the federal government, that does not necessarily translate into significant lifts for those, because we've got Black elected officials at absolutely every single level. How do we fill those gaps, and how do we set a policy that is statewide so that everyone is on the same course, has the same marching orders to lift Black people across this state?
Yes, I'm with you 100% with that. That we need real partnership, and I am going to be that partner. I've been very intentional as lieutenant governor in making sure that we build relationships at every level of government. And I'm not just talking about federal, county, city, state. I am talking about the mayors of these towns. So I know that I can pick up the phone and call the mayor of Cairo, Illinois. I know how to reach out to mayors in small towns all across our state and let people know that we should be partners. That when you need, because part of the big issue, and I know you know this, part of the big issue is navigating these large systems. And we need to do more to be proactive to say, when you're looking for economic development, let's make sure you're connected with our Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. I lead what's something called the Main Street Illinois program, so that small rural communities can have and can really kind of build their downtown areas and have walkable streets and business corridors, because that's good for their towns. But one of the things that I did, I said, let's make sure that urban communities. So we went to Austin, we went to 51st Street in Chicago, we went to Madison, and we made sure that places like that got folded in, because guess what? Our communities have business districts and should have investment as well. We need partnership. We need to make sure we're being strategic. We need to come together and have a real agenda about what we want to see happen at every level. And then we need partners, not just at the state level, but in Washington, D.C., who will make sure that we are working to bring those resources back to our community. That's going to be an important role that I will play as your next United States Senator.
But when we talk about, getting the resources back to the community, I believe in equity, not equal, but equity. So we know, because of the segregated state of how this state is in the city of Chicago, one of the most segregated cities in the country, would you see or be willing to use zip codes as a way in which to ensure that these resources are done equitably? We've got communities that have got stubborn destabilization, stubborn disinvestment, that have been looking for relief, to try and ensure that the people who really need this the most get it. That's number one. And in what way would your administration, or you being a United States Senator, in what relief would you offer by way of repairing the Black community?
Yeah.
We've talked about reparations before, but in what way would you specifically want to assist in repairing what has happened with the Black community with this stubborn poverty, stubborn disinvestment?
We need to be intentional about making sure we provide housing assistance that addresses the issue of redlining, that addresses the fact that we weren't always able to buy in certain neighborhoods, and how do we expand access to that? When I talk about, the cuts to healthcare, safety net hospitals, that are hospitals often in our communities, much like they are in rural communities, but safety net hospitals on the south and west sides of Chicago and in rural communities, those are on the chopping block. And we need to make sure that when we think about expanding access to healthcare, that we don't forget that we need to make sure that our safety net hospitals can have access to the resources they needed to stay open, because too many of us are living in healthcare deserts. And then, of course, let's not forget our Black-owned businesses, our small businesses that now I'm talking to these businesses while I'm on the trail. And because of the cuts to DBE programs at the state level, they're not getting those contracts from the federal government anymore. These businesses that we already did not see getting enough business from the federal government and not getting enough contract opportunities, now many of these businesses are getting absolutely zero, because we have a president and an administration that has decided that we don't want to give special consideration to address the harm, the historic harm that has kept so many of our businesses from succeeding. So we need somebody, and I will be that person, who will fight for those businesses and make sure that we hold accountable and ask the questions. How many Black-owned businesses are you using? And how do we open up pathways for them to have access to contracts? Remember, this president is not going to be president forever. He's not going to be president forever. So we need someone in there right now who's going to fight, stand up, go toe to toe with him, and stop the damage. I do believe that we can flip the House, and we need everyone to come out and vote and make sure that we stand strong, maybe even flip, I don't know, but certainly stand strong in the Senate. We need new leadership in the Senate that's going to really push us and hold the line and fight for our communities. And we need to make sure that our voices are represented. And remember, we had a primary just this week where, and I want to give congratulations to State Representative Talarico on his victory in Texas, and certainly want to congratulate Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett on a well fought campaign and all of her leadership. But this is an opportunity right here in Illinois, probably the best opportunity in this country, to make sure that we ensure that our voices are represented in the United States Senate, this race right here, and I have the best path to do so. And I want to take the voices of our community to Washington, D.C.
Just quickly, the federal government sets the rules and also the laws when it comes to banking. And throughout the history of this country, no matter who has been in office, Black people do not receive loans. They don't receive mortgages. They don't receive our fair share of anything. How would you address that? Because once again, as you mentioned, whoever's president right now will not always be president, but Black people are tired of having to fight. No matter who's in office, it seems like the fight is the same. So this is something that is directly within the purview of the United States Congress. How would you address the disproportionate amount of loans?
I mean, there's a long list of things that we need to make sure that we continue bringing some real accountability. And it certainly includes making sure that we investigate these banks, and the credit unions, and making sure that we are asking the right questions. I mean, this serving in the Senate is an opportunity to bring, mortgage lenders and all of these entities before to say, we want to see the numbers. We want to see the data. And I'll just remind you, we have an administration now that doesn't want data, that doesn't want numbers, that is erasing research and things that will really help us hold these bad actors accountable. To hold them accountable, that's the commitment that I've made, and I've upheld that commitment to not accept corporate PAC money, because when I get to Washington, I'm going to fight for you, the people of Illinois, the American people, to make sure that we ask all of those questions. It's why I'm proud that I've been endorsed by End Citizens United, because this system, like you said, no matter who's in the White House, our communities too often don't feel like anything's getting better. And that's what government is for. Government can and should be a force for good, but we need courageous leaders who are going to push and to hold people accountable and make sure that we do the work that we need to do.
Lieutenant Governor, if you have a close, I'd love to hear it. I thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for the questions that you're asking. This is a critical race. It's not just a seat that's available for the first time in 30 years. It matters who's in this seat. And this is an opportunity to make sure, the best opportunity in this country and in this election cycle, to make sure that the voices of the Black community are represented. We've had 5 Black women that have served in the United States Senate. I'm proud to have the endorsement of Ambassador Carol Mosley Braun, the very first one, and would love to earn your support as the listeners today on March 17th, which is Election Day. And you can go to julianastratton.com to learn a lot more about my platform and how I want to make your life better.
Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.